Okay, so we start. Good morning. Good morning to welcome to our second lesson of the Hypermedia course. If I'm able to share the presentation, here it is. Okay, here it is. So as I mentioned yesterday, the first part, the first set of lessons will be devoted to usability, to web usability. And one of your assignment is about usability, is a usability study. And today you will see what you have to do in this usability study. You have also the opportunity to perform a second usability study with a different method that will be explained next week. And but that is optional. And the first usability study that you have to do using the method that I'm going to explain now is mandatory, while the second usability study to be performed on your own website is optional. Okay, I will start explaining what is usability and what is the concept of user experience. Usability is a very broad term to indicate an important aspect of what is called in interaction design, human-computer interaction, called user experience or UX. UX is an even broader term with respect to usability, and it's an umbrella term to indicate all the aspects of how people use an interactive product. So it's everything that has to do with the way people feel the application, the interactive product, how well they understand how it works, and how they feel about if they are using it, how well it meets some goals or requirements and serves some purposes, and how well it fits in the entire context in which people are using the product. So it's everything about humans, how human feels like about the product. And usability is ease of use. In this picture depicts all the possible dimensions that have been studied by psychologists, people working in ergonomics, engineers, about this concept of user experience. So there are dimensions that are functional or pragmatic, that has to do with the so-called utility. Utility means how well the product fits with its expected goal, how useful it is. Usability instead is ease of use. So something can be very useful, even if it is not easy to use. Something can be very easy to use, but it can be useful because it simply provides functionalities and content and things that do not fit with what you need. The typical example is the controller for video recording on the TV. Is clearly very useful, but believe me, you are probably used to use it. But at the beginning, before people didn't understand how to use it, it was very difficult to use. To me, I'm still not able to make a recording on a TV, but I'm a pathological case. So there is this tension between utility and usability. Of course, you as designer, as technology developer, must maximize both utility and usability. But our focus here will be on usability. We will not, and it's not part of your work also in this project. I mean, you have to do something useful, but you will not have to measure your application or the website that you will have to inspect with respect to its requirements, its goal, so its utility. The second dimension that you see here is the dimension which is in the sphere of emotions, in the hedonic sphere. Hedonics is everything related to passion, to something that is not rational. And in this category, other attributes that contribute to the quality of the user experience are aesthetics, how visually pleasant is something, is attractiveness, how it hit our attention and our feelings and our emotion. It's fun how enjoying the application is. Engagement, how it really capture our attention and our senses in a broad sense. So in this big area of this is the evaluation space for from a user perspective. This is the evaluation space for interactive application. Splitting the quality in these two big categories: functional, pragmatic versus hedonic. And our focus is here on usability. So there are unofficial definition of usability, which has been defined by ISO. ISO is the International Standard Organization that basically define the standard definition, the standard protocol, the standard specification for everything in technology, in all technology, not just in ICT. And ISO define usability as a measure of the effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction with which specified user can achieve specific goals in particular environment. So in a sense, this is a broader definition with respect to easiness of use, because it also has to do, it also mentioned, it also relates the easiness to use to goals and to user satisfaction. And it pinpoints that usability is also a subjective perception. So for something to be easy to use, it depends on who you are or how much experience you have on that category of product. Anyway, this is the official definition. We will prefer to refer to usability as easiness of use. And I hope to have convinced you that easiness of use is a fundamental prerequisite for anything to be successful. There's also another concept, is that the usability is not something that you should think about at the end of the development process. In principle, you should think about making your product easy to use since the very beginning. When you define the requirements, you have to always think, okay, if I introduce a requirement in a system, I have to think about if I have this functionality, if my requirement is to have a given content, to have a given functionality, will this feature affect the easiness of use of my product? So since requirements analysis, you have to think about the user, about usability. You have to think about the user when you design your product at conceptual level, when you define the mock-ups and the prototype, when you go into the production phase, and of course in the final product. So there's the concept of pervasive usability that pervades the whole development cycle. And these are general concepts for any interactive product that we will instantiate on web applications. So, and this is the crucial in a sense, slide also for your exam work. So there are mainly two categories of usability evaluation methods. One is called inspection or experts review, and another one is called user testing. In the first usability study that is mandatory in the course, you will do inspection. In the optional usability study, on that evaluate your own prototype, you will do user testing. So in this way, you will be exposed to a first method, which is relatively, it's effective, that we will discuss today. But if you will be able to do also some user testing on your final product, you will be exposed to the second category, and you will have a different feeling, a different approach to understand the easiness of use. Anyway, what is inspection? Is basically involving experts only, not end users, in analyzing your application, the application to be evaluated. And there are many approaches, many techniques to perform inspection. The one that we will study and applying this course is called heuristic inspection or heuristic-based inspection, which is basically having experts, usability experts, you in this case, analyzing your application with respect to some quality principles that are called heuristics. You will do on your on the assigned website that, as you remember, is about Monte Rosa mountain skiing. You will analyze this website as you were an inspector, having some precise guidelines, some precise attributes to measure, and using your own judgment, your own opinion on to give scores to these attributes. Which is how similar to what we do when we evaluate your web application for the purpose of the exam. We have some criteria and we try to assign score to this criteria. In contrast, the user testing is gathering data from end users. So in inspection, you gather data for usability expert, that in this simulated inspection that you have to do in your exam is you. In this case, in the second case, user testing, you involve end users and you gather data from end users. And among the many possible ways to gather data from end user, we will use a task-oriented approach in which the user do things with the application and you have to gather some specific data that I will explain next week. Just let me take a short break to see if there is anyone waiting. No? Okay, so we can continue. If I'm able to resume. One second, guys. I cannot see my windows anymore. Okay. Okay. These slides again about the general concepts about usability evaluation. Okay, there are some. When you plan your evaluation, there are some questions that you have to answer in order to plan your study, your usability evaluation study. Where and what and which system features. So where to measure usability? You can measure usability in the real setting of the application, so what is called ecological context. So if you're doing an application for work, you measure it at work. If you use an application for mobile use on the park, you do it on the park and so on. Or you can do in an artificial setting, so usability lab, or a semi-informal setting, that is a research lab. What is the object of your evaluation? As I mentioned, it can be design specifications, it can be requirement design specification, an intermediate prototype as your final application for this course, or the final product, the product that is already deployed on the market. And also when you plan your usability study, you have to decide, okay, what is, there are many aspects that affect ease of use. So something can be more or less ease of use because of the graphics, because of the functionality, because of the interaction modes, because of the device that you use for interaction. So you have to decide to define which system feature you want to focus on, which could be the look and feel, the interaction capability, the setup, the multimedia contents, and many others. So in the specific case of website, the evaluation dimension can be content. So, I mean, is this content easy to use in the sense that, I mean, can I manipulate this content? Can I go back and forth if it is an animation? So is the content easy to use? Is to use also related to the fact, is it easy to read, easy to consume? It's about the information architecture, which is how the content is organized. Another dimension is navigation or interaction. Is that easy to move from one page to another page? Is that easy to find where the links are? Labeling is related to the evidence of the meaning of the various elements. So for example, is it clear that this word here means a given type of link? Graphical layout or the aesthetic aspects. Operation, is that easy for the user to perform a given operation? For example, make a reservation, buy something, undo an operation. Other are related to, for example, to error management. When the user does something wrong, is that easy for the user to recover? And then cognitive overload, which is how much the user can process the amount of information and the amount of task provided by during the interaction with the application. Again, we have these two categories, inspection and user testing, and now we focus on inspection. Basically, inspection requires a group of experts. In fact, it's also called expert review. For the purpose of this course, you will play the role of expert, usability expert. That's why it's better if you study a bit of usability before doing your homework. Basically, these expert evaluators analytically study an application in all the aspects that are not technological but are related to the user experience, and do a systematic, in-depth analysis of the application. It's better if people have some experience in the domain, so it's much more difficult to analyze for inspection an application on a topic that you are totally not aware of. So typically the experts start understanding something about the domain. So for example, I was asked to do a usability evaluation in the bioinformatics fields, and I didn't know much about bioinformatics, and before doing it I had to study a bit what the domain was about. Usability inspection methods are very popular, especially in the US and industrial context, for a number of reasons that we will see at the end in terms of pros and cons. And the person who invented this method is Jakob Nielsen, that invented it in 1999. So usability is really a classic topic in human-computer interaction and design. And usability has not changed much since the end of the last centuries. But it's still a topic that, a classic topic, a fundamental topic that, in my opinion, must be studied. So Nielsen invented a method which is called heuristic evaluation. So basically, he defined a checklist of usability principles, a checklist of usability principles to guide the discovery of usability problem. So basically, these heuristic are principles that must be satisfied by the application in order to be usable. And Nielsen invented 10 heuristics. He said, okay, it's enough to have 10 of them. So Nielsen is a very pragmatical person. He said, okay, if we have more, it's too much. If we have less, it's not enough. So let's define 10 is the magical number. And these 10 heuristics are very popular. There are other examples of heuristic that are developing a method called MILE, which, by the way, I contributed to define. And if you ask which heuristic shall I use for my exam, it's basically the heuristic that I give you, and you will see it at the end of these slides and in the exam specification, are a distillation. They distill these heuristics that, in my opinion, are more focused than Nielsen heuristics. But if you want, you can measure you can evaluate your application using these heuristics that I give you explicitly, and include also some of Nielsen heuristic if you like. So these are the Nielsen heuristics as an example of heuristic inspection. Basically, by the way, this is not the Bible in the sense that a lot of people said, no, I don't like it, I want to have other. and they define different kind of heuristics. But we will refer to them as an exercise. So, and we will go through them one after the other. So, visibility of system status. The principle is the following, the heuristic is the following. The system should always keep user informed about what is going on through appropriate feedback with reasonable time. So the idea is that especially in complex websites or in a complex application which have many functionality, you tend to get lost in the sense that you don't know where you are. You don't know what is going on. You don't know what the system status and your status in the system is. So it's important that your interface give you an indication of where you are, how you get there, how you got there, where you can go from, so how you can proceed. So typically it's called status bar. And now I try to turn and check some question. Okay, I check some question and ask a question. The question that I have is, give me an example of visibility of system status beside the other that are mentioned here. In the meantime, I answer to the question. Chiara says, as I can see it, different kind of use can have different abilities, and so judging the application too easy or too difficult. How can we? Okay, how can we manage this? This is a very good point, which is related more to user testing, which the user are involved. And this question is related to the fact that easiness of use is intrinsically subjective feeling, which depends on the level of familiarity that the user has with the application or with the application domain. So please do again this question next week. So because I answer now, and then I would like to discuss more deeply this question when we talk about user testing. The idea, in principle, you solve this issue, which is an important issue, by doing user testing with different categories of users, so that you can have your result referred to different categories of users, different user profile. So usability is not, there are some usability problems that are general for all users, and then you might discover usability problems that are specific for some category of users, such as user that has more or less familiarity with the system. So I hope that I have answered this question, but again, please, Chiara, go back to the issue next week when we will talk about user testing. Instead, Giulia Lorini, she's answering my question about how can I support the visibility of user status, and she said breadcrumbs. So breadcrumbs are these little teeny things that appear in web pages that tell you which pages you have traversed, and that is a good question, a good answer. So it's correct. The breadcrumbs are typically introduced for helping the user understand where he or she is. I would like to raise breadcrumbs are part of a category of interface issue that I call orientation information. They are there to orient the users. So, sorry. So, when the point that we will go back to this issue hopefully at the end of this class. Designing breadcrumbs is not is a sophisticated design problem, because you can imagine that breadcrumbs can affect usability negatively, because if you have a breadcrumb that simply list all the pages that you have traversed, you will have a huge list of breadcrumbs, many teeny pieces. If you select, so decided which breadcrumbs to make available, to make visible to the user, is important for usability. So the way you design breadcrumbs can affect usability. Another, the loading icon. Okay, Aliana, she is also answering properly. Loading icons, when you see, when the system tells you, okay, wait a second, we are loading your file, and you see that the loading icon becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, you have the feeling of where you are in the loading process. So great, guys, you're smart. Okay. I'm less smart because I never understand how to turn to the slide, but I might make it. 1 second. Okay, there are some usability problems in Teams. It's absolutely not evident for me how to switch to the slide status, the slide presentation. Okay, between the system and the real world. Okay, that is an heuristic that is a bit ambiguous, and in my opinion, there are also overlaps with respect to other heuristic. But I want to report Nielsen heuristic as he formulated it. Well, the idea that you have to the interface is the communication channel between the system and the user. So it uses some language, words, phrases, images, symbols. And it's important that these wording, these symbols are aligned with the user mental model. It should not be expressed. Okay, just give me, sorry guys, 1 second that I tell to my daughter that I'm teaching. They haven't seen my signal. 1 second, sorry. Yeah, sorry for interruption. Okay, so the idea is that you have to use these communication channels. So you have to use a language, visual or text-based or audio. So terminology that the user can understand. There are some general real-world conventions. Such as some symbols are universally acknowledged as something, and you have to provide them. So you have to use the right terms in the proper orders. So the example is here. Adds in is a term that is an old version of PowerPoint, but adds and they remove adds in, but adds in is something that probably 99% of the people don't understand. So I would like to write a question. Give me an example of a symbol that is a real world convention. And you are somehow, if you use it, okay, the loading icon, perfect. The loading icon is generally acknowledged. Also the symbol that, the cross symbol means close. It's also a general, the save icon as well. By the way, all these terms are not natural by God laws, but it's natural because now the population is used to it, as well as the attachment icon. Okay, the attachment icon I think is better. Attachment icon is evocative of something that we use in our everyday life. Okay, to attach. You know, when we want to attach sheets, we use I don't know how to, come si chiama? Graffetta. Okay, we use this graffetta. Okay. So the attachment icon is a more general. The save icon, okay, it remember the old floppy disk that are 2 or 3 generations before you, but now we're used to it because we find it or the padlock icon, exactly. We're used to it because of our familiarity with a given class of system. Of course, if you introduce a symbol, so these are examples of, if you use this symbol, you are supporting usability. If you use something totally different, you are not supporting usability. The typical case are the symbol for toilet. Symbol for toilet, you have female toilet and male toilet, and there are some general symbols to denote the gender. Okay, but sometimes I found that some creative designer introduced these different symbols. I remember in a restaurant, and there was a continuous switch of men and girls and boys going to the wrong toilet because they didn't understand the symbols. Okay, let's try to turn to the, let me see. Again, I have this usability problem of remembering how to turn to the slides presentation. Maybe down here. Okay. User control, number 3, user control and freedom. Okay, there is always a tension when you create a system, also a website, there is always a tension between how much freedom you give to the user to do things, how many things you put together in the same visualization versus imposing a prescriptive flow. So it's important to take into account the user often choose system function by mistake. So you have to take into account that the user makes mistake, and if they make mistake, it's your fault. It's not the fault, the user's fault. So you need to offer the user opportunity for the emergency exits, so that if they do something wrong, they can recover. So, for example, in e-commerce website, if you make a mistake doing your order at a given point, not when you have confirmed 3 times your transaction, when you're doing a mistake in your order, you should always be allowed to go back and to undo and redo things. Consistency and standard, that is related, that is an example of a heuristic that, in my opinion, should be merged with the previous one. So it's exactly what we said before. We have symbols that have a standard meaning all over the world, such as close. Also, there is another issue in this heuristic, the idea of platform convention that we have already mentioned, but the idea of being consistent. So the user consistency is one of the more general and important usability principles. So consistency means similar things should have similar representations. Different things should have different representation. So consistencies can be with the rest of the world. So be consistent with the universal meaning of this symbol, the cross. But consistency can also be referred to the interior of your website. Be consistent in your use of some symbols, words, layout structures, titles, contents, and so on and so forth. Error prevention. This is also related to the issue that the user make mistake. And it's better to prevent than to fix the mistake. So, for example, that's a typical. If people don't go, so you have to create link structure in your website so that the user does not risk to go to pages where he does not want to go. That's the example is mentioned here. It's frequent in many web pages to get to the wrong page, a page you are not intended to go. So one could say, okay, what is the problem? The user can only press the back button, probably from the browser. But how could you prevent the fact that he's going to the wrong place? You as designer should be able to make the link label explicit. Explicit in the sense that the link label should have an explicit meaning. So unless the user click it by mistake because it's really using the mouse or the touch in the wrong way, the label should not create any misunderstanding. So there are many ways to make error prevention. One is to use the right label in terms of the text of the label, in terms of the semiotics. Also, put the links or the interaction elements in the proper position, put them distant enough one from the other so that you don't risk to click by mistake on the wrong place. Anyway, design your interface having in mind that user make mistake, and you as designer should try to prevent mistake as much as possible. Recognition rather than recall. That is a concept that comes from psychologists. And the idea is the following. People should not be forced to remember something exactly, but which is recall. The user should recognize the meaning, because that meaning belongs to his or her general mental system. So the idea is that you want to minimize the user memory load. So making things evident, making things visible, making things matching their internal status, their general, the principle that they are in their long-term memory, in their entire structure, mental structure, instead of remembering details and factual things. And the general concept is the reason why when that is my favorite example. Sometimes it happened that you by mistake click a combination of symbol and your keyboards move from Italian to Chinese to American, whatever, and you don't remember. I mean, personally, every time it happens, I have to call the technical staff at my department and say, how can I recover and turn to my keyboard to the original one? And they come, they try to make their combination. But I know that there is this combination of symbols of keys that I have to press. I know that they are there, but cannot recall them. And I should instead be able to recognize on my keyboard or on my Microsoft operating system interface how to do things. So this operation should be recognizable rather than require me to retrieve from my memory, to recall from my memory what is the right combination. Flexibility and efficiency of use. And that is related to the question that one of you raised in the chat, which is about the subjectivity of the easiness of use. The question was, but how can I choose ease of use depend on the user, depend on how familiar he is with something, or how much he knows about a given kind of system or a given kind of application. And that is how this heuristic comes out about flexibility and efficiency of use. There are different users. A user at some point of time becomes expert of the application if he uses it intensively. So at some point of time, he should be allowed to skip some tests or to have accelerators, to have elements that allows him or her to skip some pointings, to jump from one place of the application to another. And so the more the application allows you, is flexible and allow you to do things in different ways, take into account that there are different users, the more the application is to use for different categories of user. Example of web accelerators are what we call landmarks. So please remember this term, put it in your memory. As landmarks in our terminology means that elements that are everywhere in the interface, so that at any point of time, when you click there, you have this functionality available. So instead of so the typical example of landmark is home. The home button is a landmark. It's an accelerator because the home buttons are everywhere. Home links, home buttons to denote home links, links to the home, are available everywhere in the application, in the website. So at any point of time, you can jump on top and restart the navigation. In Windows Control Alt X is is an accelerator. Instead of making different click to select the top-down menu, select the cut function, you can make a combination of keys. Other example of, so for the purpose of the web application, the most frequent example of accelerator are landmarks. Home is is a sort of universal landmark that appears everywhere, but in general, the top, the links that are in the menu, the general menu bar, the menu bar that appears in all pages of your website. These are examples of accelerators that allow you to be flexible, to make jump and to speed up your navigation. Aesthetic and minimalistic design. The idea is that also from an aesthetic viewpoint, less is more. So you don't need to overload, to put too many visual effects to have a better website. Very often, the more visual effect you add, the less usable the website is, because any stimuli, visual stimuli, an accumulation of visual stimuli make the use of the application more tiring and in general reduce usability. So that's so minimalistic design refers to visual aspect. It refers to the text that you use to describe your content, to the labels that you use. So the idea that try to keep your content and layout property to a minimal amount, unless your goal is real to hit the user and to have the user using it just very few moments and you want to impress the user. But in general, if you want to have a system, a website that you use many times and by many different users, balance, provide only the elements that are really necessary for the purpose of your application. The example is marble-like background, especially till some years ago, the typical website, because I've been teaching this course for something like 15 years. When the CSS came out, so you have this facility to create very fast, very colorful background layouts. The typical backgrounds in the page for engineers were marble-like. So they like to make these strange effects on the background of the text so that the text was unreadable. And they said, well, it's nice. I mean, it's an extra feature that I've added to my application. They were ignoring usability. The other, for me, a bit redundant heuristics is, again, related to errors. The users should be able to understand their errors and to understand why they have done something. So the typical example is from our website, in which sometime you do a mistake and either you get this null pointer message or you have this servlet exception list, which is really something disoriented that I mean, for person expert in computer science, you know that system can answer you this way, but for a general user, if you get this, you get into panic. So avoid. So the user can make mistake. The application can be not perfect, but you have to imagine and to define all the possible situation of mistakes. And in case of mistake, you should give just simply a notice saying, okay, you're doing a mistake, we're trying to recover it, don't worry, go back, instead of creating these awful presentations. But the last one is about help and documentation. And the key concept is that if you want to have to provide some help features, remember that you have usability issue also in the help itself. So creating a help, an online manual is totally useless unless this help and online documentation is designed for usability itself. Okay, There are rather a number of references that you can refer to. Before moving to other heuristic, is there any question? Okay, 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 sometimes e-commerce websites ignore usability measure in some parts of their design in order to, sorry, I'm trying to scroll, in order to increase profit. Amazon lets you add the promotional code at the last stage. Is this acceptable? This is a very good point, which is related to the ethics of design and the ethics of product. Of course, sometimes this is a good example of a feature that reduces usability because you have a promotional code, and probably when you make a transaction, a purchase with Amazon, you would like to use it as soon as possible, and instead you find it at the last moment. It's a tip. So I agree with you. It's acceptable or not is what they do. Probably it's not particularly ethical. It decreases usability, but it's clear it's a choice, a design choices typically driven by, as you said, commercial goals. Move up and down icon for flexibility. Could you please elaborate a bit about this question? Zahara, it might be out of context and I might not understand it completely. Okay, maybe Zara, you can elaborate it a bit more. Okay, I would like to continue with giving you example of other heuristics. Okay, there is a mistake in the order here, anyway. Okay, sorry for that. I mashed up a bit the slides. So this slide should be on the end, no problem. Okay, MILE heuristics. MILE stands for Milano Lugano Evaluation Method because it was a joint work between University of Lugano in Switzerland and Politecnico di Milano. And there are several papers about MILE. I give you example of, and the heuristics are something like 40, so it's not, it's really a big bunch of heuristics. I give you example of heuristics that are different from MILE's heuristic. One is called text conciseness. This is related to the usability of the content. And the principle is that if you put too much content in a web page, again, less is more. You are violating the principle that less is more. In a sense, you violated the principle of minimal design because simply people will not be able to read all this text. Having all these texts is like having almost zero text. So the heuristic is the text concise enough so that the user can read it and can understand it and is able to consume this text. Ambiguity of labels. In this specific case, the idea that labels should have a very explicit meaning. So in this screenshot, you have tours and take on online tours. There is some ambiguity because the term tour is in both of them. And if you go to this page, which is not online anymore, what is the meaning, in your opinion, of tours? And what is the difference between the label tours? So if you go online, you see that the mouse changes, so you understand that this is a link. Both of them are links. But what is the difference between tours and online tours? Okay, do you have any? Okay, type on the chat if you have an idea. Is there any difference between tours and online tours? In the slide that I was sharing here. Your opinion, what is tours and what is take an online tour? No idea? Okay. Francesco says tour description, say tours is for booking a real tour. Okay. Tours may refer to kind of different tours over take online tours. Okay, well, okay, let's go and see what you're. Okay, the general opinion is that tour is for booking real tours. Another, okay, another say tours is the main category and the other is a subcategory. Right now, the label would be plan your visit and online tour. Maybe tours is a different kind of tours and taken another tour is for booking a tour. Online tour is for, well, there are many feedbacks. Okay, anyway, tours are for typical tours, online tour are for online tours. Okay, actually, guys, this in the last one, tours are for physical tour, online tours are for online tours is I tell you, is the right answer. But the fact that you have been discussing on this issue means that the meaning is not evident. So online tours, as suggested by some of you, is for seeing tours of art, for seeing work, for sequences of work items online, while tours suggest something physical. But as I don't know who now, another person said, but it would be better plan your visit and reserve a tour would be much more evident. So even with this, we're talking about 5 words: take a tour and tours, take an online tour and tour. So even with these few words, you can create ambiguity. And so you have already suggested solution for fixing this problem, such as plan your visit, plan your tour in the gallery. It could be much more expressive than tours. Also, for you, what is the meaning of online tour? Because this is a concept that we will introduce later in when we discuss about design. The concept of tour is a design concept. Okay, so what is the meaning of tour of online tour? Okay. 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 We all agree that online tour is something virtual. It's something in the computer, in the website, in the laptop, in the mobile phone. It's not something not physical. So virtual is clearly virtual. But Mattia says a VR, meaning VR tour is probably meaning a sort of a 3D environment in which you explore of 3D environment with 360 videos in which you explore the museum in a virtual way. Is that what you meant, Mattia? Okay, so that is interesting because, of course, before VR was not so widely used. So till 10 years ago, no one would have said that because, I mean, 360 video was not so popular. But that is a good interpretation. So it's clear that online tour means virtual. What does virtual mean? The most natural way that the most natural answer for you is 360 video that I explore. Indeed, we will use the concept of tour, and also in that website that dates back to more than 10 years ago. The concept of tour was slightly different. The concept of tour was creating a list of items from the museum, from the exhibits of the museum, organizing them into a list. So a selection of the best item of the museum, and presented as a list. So the user taking a tour, taking a virtual tour in that website meant going to a list of exhibit, the most important exhibit of the museum, and have the possibility to select each of them or to move from one to the next or the previous one. So basically the idea of tour is the idea of a list of items that are particularly representative for the content of the website. Others say a three-dimensional image of a place, maybe that you can move through it, because that is the idea of virtual reality as we know it now. But the idea of tour in that specific website was list of the most representative items in the museum. So you have it's a tour, it's a mental tour across the most important items of the museum. And remember this idea of tool because we will go back to it when we will do design. Okay, go next with our analysis. Okay, that is another example of heuristics. That is another bad example of layout in which you have light blue and darker blue background with even darker blue text. So blue on blue on blue on blue is really a visual creative readability problem. Next week on Wednesday, one designer on my lab will give a talk. The lesson will be about visual design principles, which is probably a lesson that for our design students in the course is something, provides something which is well known, but is particularly important for engineers to understand some simple layout heuristics and example of how to design things from a purely visual perspective. Okay, this is another example. So here are probably the worst example in the history of websites, and they have an historical value, but many of these mistakes can be found, many of them can be found in today's website. So for example, using the right font. Again, the idea is that you should put things, less is more. If you put less things that are more usable, choose to put less things. In this case, the designer wanted to put too many things, and you will see examples in other slides. And with this low font, the menu becomes not readable. This is an example of mistakes. So you write something and you go to nothing. This is an example of information overload that is also connected to the previous issue. So if you have menu with submenus and submenus and submenus, the user gets lost. So this big amount of items with an even longer amount of items is something that reduces usability. This is another example. Okay. In some cases, you cannot make, that is a quote from Einstein, you can make things simpler, not simple. So if something is complex, you can make it simpler, but you cannot reduce complexity into simplicity. Your challenge as designer is to organize your content and your layout in such a way that it becomes simpler. So in this case, of course, there are all these items when you deal about tumors. I mean, the domain is huge and the topics are huge. Having them in alphabetical order, having this huge list, because this is a list just for A and B items. Is that a good way to present the topics, or wouldn't it better to organize things more hierarchically or with a different kind of visualization? So this is clearly an information overload problem applied to the menu. Okay. And now to finish, so forget about this slide that there was a mashup. I move to a different set of slides. I move to a different set of slides to present to you the study exam and what you have to do. Okay. Is there any problem? Any question at this point? Okay, no question. I proceed with giving you the exam specification for the usability study, and then the last part of the lecture, I will we will play with some websites. Okay. So okay. So you have to recap, you have to do 2 studies, one on an assigned website, which is this one, and one on your own website. In both cases, this is the website, and I'm not going to discuss it with you today. We will discuss another one. What I suggest you is start looking at it and then start to organize your inspection work. The inspection work in both studies is to design and plan what to do. So list all things in time. So I have to do this, by this time, and by this time, and by this time. Execute the study and report. Let me see if there is anyone waiting. Yes. 1 second. Okay. Again. Sorry, again, I cannot. Difficulties to switch to the slides. Okay. So clearly, before starting inspection, you should have your group defined so that you can assign, that you can organize the work, because the work is to perform heuristic inspection, which means define your set of heuristics, and the set of heuristics are the one reported. They are mixed up in the previous slides, but they are reported in the proper order in these slides. It's absolutely non-mandatory to include other heuristics if you want. So if you say, okay, I find some clear violation of other heuristics, you can report, you add heuristic to your list. And then what you have to do, okay, what are the heuristics that we use? Here we are. They are, these are related to navigation, to content, and to layout. So I have distilled some of the main heuristics that I would like you to focus on. Concerning navigation, one is interaction consistencies. Do pages of the same time have the same links and interaction capability? The issue here is, what are pages of the same time, of the same type? Page type is a concept that will be explained in a semi-formal way when we deal about conceptual design. But for the purpose of your study, page of the same time are pages that refer to similar kind of content. So in a museum, page of the same time will be pages, all pages about paintings, the pages about all painters, the pages about events, all pages that have some similar semantic meaning. They belong to the same category of topics or category of functionality. For example, if in an e-commerce website you have a different function for making different kind of transaction, you expect that these pages are of the same time, and therefore you expect they have the same links and interaction capabilities. Okay? So I will go through the list of navigation heuristics, and then I will check with you if everything is clear, because if you don't understand the heuristics, it's difficult to make the inspection. Then another important heuristic, in my opinion, is group navigation. Okay, the concept of group is pervasive in all web. It's pervasive in web application, because you don't have a list of individual pages. You have pages grouped according to different features. You have all paintings. You have all authors. You have paintings by color, painting by periods, or you have products by category. So the idea of grouping of course, we're talking about, remember what I said yesterday, we're talking about content, data-intensive website. So the concept of grouping is an important abstraction. It's always there. And when you have groups, you need to navigate across groups. You have to navigate from the list of items of the group to a specific item of the group, or you have to navigate from one group to the other group, from product which are books to product that are DVDs, or from product that are from paintings of a given period to painting of another period. So and you really, most of the time, your navigation is a group navigation inside group, from a group to another group, or across member of a group. So is it easy to navigate from the formulation is for that, from and among, okay, there's a mistake here. It's easy to navigate from and among groups of items. I will reformulate it. It's easy to navigate from the list of items to its members. Okay, the better formulation is here. I don't know, in the cut and paste something got.
Sorry, Professor, I think we are not seeing the same slide.
Oh, thank you for telling me. So wait a minute. Do you see now? Because in my visualization, okay, you are right. I was clicking. Okay, now you see navigation. Do you see it now?
No, still.
Because it's okay. Let me try again, because apparently it's what I see is as the red frame, so it should be something that. Okay, let me try again. Okay, let me try again. I will stop the sharing and reload it. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Okay, stop sharing, share. Okay, do you see it now? Do you everybody see is usability heuristic navigation? Okay, great. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Okay, let me try again. Okay, interrupt me because okay, usability heuristic navigation. We're all on the same page. Okay, let's use this visualization. It's not full screen, but I hope it's effective for you. Because in this way I do not risk to so I have all the background of Teams in the same visualization. Okay, are we okay? Okay, okay. Oh gosh, what? Okay, good. Okay, so I just quickly repeat. It's a concept of do page at the same time, have the same link interaction capability, the idea of consistency, same things have same navigation feature. Group navigation, is it to navigate from and among, the in was wrong, among group of items. So from a list of items to its member, across members. The other one is called structure navigation. Is it easy to navigate among the components of a topic? Example, you have a product. The product has a presentation, has reviews, has instruction for delivery, instruction for payment, instruction for refund. These are all components of the topic, and you want to explore the topic in an easy way. Is that easy in the website to move from one piece, from one part of a topic to another part of the same topic? And topic is still an informal term. It's an informal term, but it will be, I mean, it will define more formally, but intuitively you can still work with this idea that there are subjects in your website that can be split in part. And if the subject is split in part, it's that easy to move from one to the other. notice that in many cases you have in modern website you have topics that are in the same page, so you are long pages in which you find everything. Okay, still you have pieces, and the question is it easy to scroll to reach from one to the other? For example, it may happen that one interesting piece is on the bottom and it's not so easy to use to go to scroll the entire page to go to that paint, and it could be much more easy to have some links to jump from different parts of your page. Okay. So that is structure navigation within the same topic. So, and try to remember this concept, because structure navigation is a concept that we will when we conceptualize design. Semantic navigation means moving from one topic to another, which has a relevant domain-dependent relationship with the other topic. So, tell me example of no, tell me. I will ask later. Example of semantic navigation when I move from a painting to the painter, when I move from a painting to the historical period for that painting. So write down example on the chat of semantic navigation, of links that enable you to perform semantic navigation. Let's see. Okay, the links in Wikipedia. Well, the links in Wikipedia are, yes, they have a very generic, okay, that is an example of semantic navigation, because they connect topics in a sort that, since Wikipedia is huge, this link in Wikipedia, in a sense, express almost any form of semantic relationship. So when I wrote down a piece on Wikipedia and you mentioned the term Rome as a city, you click there, it is Rome. So all kind of, in a sense, you're right, all kind of semantic association are rendered by this link in Wikipedia. Okay, probably the most focus is going from the page of a course to a page of the professor, in which the semantic link is more clear. So that is a sort of more of a stronger example, because it's clear that in this domain you have a relationship between professor and courses. Okay, good. You got the point. Bravi. Here we are. And then landmarks. I have explained the landmarks before. And landmarks are the accelerators that we mentioned discussing previous heuristic. There are links available. For us, it's as a more neutral concept is links available in all pages. So, for example, home is a typical example of landmark. Okay. So are landmarks useful? So are there, do you have enough landmarks to meet all your need to speed up the navigation? Are there too many, too less? Second category of heuristics, heuristic related to content. The main one that I would consider about content is information overload. Again, the issue is there too much content or too less content in a single visualization, in a visualization that I can manipulate, and content can be text. So textual overload is typical of many websites, but you can have too many pictures, too many animation, too many video, and content overload is related to the content that is there, not to the way for you to move from one content to another. So if you want to consider usability of moving from one content to another, it's an issue about structure navigation, because each piece of content is a sort of component of the same topic. So it's difficult to move from one piece of content or another piece of content is an issue of structure navigation. If the content is too much per se, it's an issue, you create information overload. Information overload in terms of which comes from psychology. And it's the idea that your mind, your neurons are not able to process too much information. So information overload take place when you have too much information, your brain is not able to process this information in an efficient way. Okay, concerning layout, you will better understand layout heuristic when we talk about visual design. Anyway, text layout has to do with the readability of the text, font size, font type. Interaction placeholder is related to the labels, to the textual or visual label of interactive element. Do they convey their meaning or not? Are they expressive? Do they reflect the meaning of what you have to do? And what is the effect of interacting with that interaction items? So these are the visual placeholders for interaction. They need to be expressive. The key point, they need to be expressive and they need to be consistent. Another issue about space, spatial allocation. You will see with Julia, our designer, you will see example of good way and bad way to place items on the screen. Basically, the screen is a two-dimensional space. You need to place element of this two-dimensional space so that the position convey some semantics. And there is and since there are some studies that say that our mind tends in Western culture, our mind tends to go. Our eye tend to look on the top left top corner first. Before processing the other part of the screen, your eyes tend to go on the top left corner. So if you have some relevant element, you would put them on that position. So the position of top left corner are the position of the most relevant element, while of course on the bottom of on the right side, on the bottom of the right side corner, you typically should place the element that are less relevant, because there is this principle in Western culture that your eyes tend to go on the bottom left, bottom right later in this processing of the page. And that is typical, as I said, of Western culture, because we are used to read left to right, top from bottom. So is the spatial allocation appropriate for their relevance? And relevance is put relevant things in relevant position of the page. Also, there is another issue which is semantically related elements. So there is another psychological principle from Gestalt psychology which says our mind tend to process visual elements that are similar, that are close as similar. So when I see two things that are close, mentally we group them and we say they have some relationship, they have some similitude. Instead, if these elements are split apart, they are distant, you process each of them separately, so you imagine that they do not have a relationship. Therefore, semantically related element should be close in space, nearby in space, while semantically distant element should be far away. So that is the principles of correct spatial allocation. And then there is a general principle of consistency of page structure, so which is a more in the large concept. So page of the same type, and remember type we have already informally defined. Type means pages that deal about same things. Do you have the same general visual properties and general organization of the various elements. So are they visually consistent? So I find similar things in similar place in page of the same type. Okay, that is all about the heuristics. Do you have a question about this part? Oh gosh, dov'è? I probably finding the chat. Okay. Okay, let me just scroll down. Any question? Okay, you seem to be silent, so I go ahead. Okay, so what you have to do in the course. Okay, the first thing is, okay, the website is something that, okay, it's already, has been already assigned, is this one, okay? Okay, first of all, you have to decide about the metrics. I mean, you, the inspector are you, it's your team. You have to say, okay, what is our metrics and how do we assign the score? And it's useful to have a sheet like this one in which you list, look at this part. You say, okay, let's put this heuristic into a category. Let's decide what are the suggested score, which this is an example. You can choose an interval 0.5 or 0.3 or 0.10. In general, not applicable is the heuristic is not applicable. 0 is the heuristic, not applicable means does not make any sense to use these heuristics here. I try to give you, I made a selection of a heuristic that makes sense, that are universally applicable in general. So very difficult that they are not, at least to, after my analysis of the website that I have assigned to you. But anyways, it might happen that in some cases the heuristic is not applicable. And then you say, okay, give me a score, and you can define the score. 0 means the heuristic is totally violated. There are very severe violation of the this heuristic, or 5, the heuristic is fully satisfied and there is no severe violation. So once you said, okay, let's use a score 0 to 5, let's put the heuristic into a table. This is the final result that you have to produce. So the score that is agreed among all group members. But indeed, I do recommend you that each of you create, use a separate sheet like this one and write down the scores that they assign to each heuristics. And then only at the end, you have the score agreed among all group members. So there are, in a sense, two versions of this table. One in which you have the individual score by each of you, and another one in which there is the score agreed among all group members. So you prepare this inspection sheet that is used by all evaluators. And then each evaluator inspects the application, go down step by step, inspect the application, and say, for me, in general, another recommendation that I have is that while you proceed, you collect information about you during your inspection, you write comments, you write, you select a screenshot and write them down here. So you remember the different situation in which something has been violated or something has been strongly satisfied. So that when you write 3 here, let's say, okay, no, let's say 2. So which means that there are some violation. Here you have comment and here you have screenshot. So that you remember, you evaluator remember why you gave a 2, because on this screen you find violation and on this screen you have this comment. Then when you create the final table together, you take all these screens, you discuss them together, and at the end you say, okay, Mario gave 2, Franca gave 2, and Lucia, she gave 1, and so let's say that the average could be 1.5. No, which is not the average, of course, but it's an agreement which is not the mathematical average, otherwise it could be automatic. You say, okay, let's say not really bad, not really good, it's 1.5, because here you write the comment, taking the comment from Franca, from Mario, from Lucia, and here you put the screenshots that highlight, or you put here some comments, and in your documentation you put the screenshot and say, okay, see reference to figure 3. Figure 3 is where you highlight the violations. Okay, so that is the general way. So remember that this report is intended as an input for the redesign activity. So it's the input. Okay, here is the diagnosis. You are not required to propose new redesign solutions, even though very often when you see a mistake, you tend to say, and this would be the solution. So if you put the solution, it's a plus for your report, but you are not, you are doing the analysis at the moment, not the redesign. So if your document is only about the analysis, it's okay. If in the discussion part you want to add some hints, some proposal for the design, they are more than welcome, and it will be a plus for your work. Imagine that you're doing this usability report for the general manager of the company, of the institution, the client who pays for that work. So imagine that there is a Monte Rosa ski SPA that want to have an analysis of their website. This work is assigned to you, so you have to create a professional report, imagining that you have a real client in front of you. And they also imagine that you don't need to be verbal, you need to be very clear, very up to the point, because they want to have a clear idea of the problem and their severity with proper example. Overall, the maximum suggested length of your report without annexes is 10 pages. So it should be 10 pages, and then you can add further examples. So 10 pages is the typical document that the manager might read. You can have an annex in which you add additional comments or additional screenshot to highlight problems or positive points of strength of your application. So this is the general structure of the usability report. So this is the list of structure, and then this is the list of the key content, and here is the list of structure, and this is the structure. So it's important that you put some information about the methods. So imagine again, you are delivering this document to a manager. He wants to know your general method, which is inspection based. What are the steps followed? What are the steps followed? Or it means, okay, each individual inspector did so and so. This is the heuristic. These are the score that we used. Then report the score of each evaluator, the score and the score, and if you have space, also the comments, but at least the score of each evaluation, and then the summary score agreed among evaluator. Indeed, this is the only part that I would not deliver to a manager. So the manager is not really interested to what Mario, Franca, Lucia did. They want to have the final score. But this is for me. So the fact that you report the score of each individual evaluator is a way for me to verify if each of you have done something. So I can come to you and say, Maria, these are your score, why? Instead, if I have the aggregated value, I cannot make this question in case I want to check something. Okay. Then include good comments and good example of commented screenshots. Excuse me. And then, so elaborate on your decision. Include also, and that is important, the managers want to see aggregated data, want to see data that concisely render the idea. So for example, mean values for heuristic, score by dimension, organized by dimension, some diagrams and summary table, and then include a short conclusion in which you discuss the result. So this is the main content. I'm selecting an example of good inspection report done by previous students. I haven't posted it yet on BIP. It will be posted by the end of the week. I need to select some part and to correct some parts. Anyway, so this is how I expect the general structure of the document. There is a cover. Again, these are sort of instruction for a professional documentation. This is a cover page with title of your work, group member, plus a short abstract. Then please include a table of content, which page number, and put the page number in your documentation. That is a must. That's very important for jumping from one page to another and for sharing content. When I say, okay, go to page 3, if there is no page number, I cannot say to you, go to page 3 and tell me something about this. Then general method and the execution of the study, and not many lines, few lines that define your structure. The results, again, score of each evaluator. Agree. That is, again, for me, I would remove it in the document for a manager. Agreed score, aggregate score with visualization, discussion of results, and optional suggestion for improvement. And that's all. So I would switch to questions. Okay. Okay. If move one question to the other. If we are 3 in the group, do we have to deliver 4 tables, 1 for each member and 1 with the agreed score? The answer is yes. I expect that there are less comments and content in the individual evaluator table. I would recommend to make a longer and a richer table for the agreed score, and also to add few lines to discuss how you made this inter-agreement process. So how did you get to the agreement that if you give 2, 3, 4, at the end in the agreed score you gave a 4. Okay, so few lines that discuss how to do it. So 4 tables with the last table with the agreed score, richer in comments and example. Do we define specific user group for assessing the website? Well, the very idea of inspection is that you are playing the role of user, but you're not referring to a specific user. So these heuristics are as much as possible user profile independent. Even though criteria like text readability, I mean, they depend on the personal traits, but yes and no, because in general, the idea that you should be as concise as possible. So in this case, one second, let's go here. Go to the heuristic. Well, by the way, I think I removed text readability. Yes. So you don't have text readability in my list, but we have it. But you have it here. You're right. No, the text of conciseness. Text readability. If you refer to this one, or you refer to which one? Conciseness. I think that in both cases, I don't really see any specific cultural influence in this. But we can discuss. Okay, may depend on the age because of really the visual capability of the person, the eye capability. Okay, can we have an example of this document? Yes, as I said, it was a sort of last-minute decision, the one of putting usability in this part, to start the course with usability. So I'm still working, selecting the best document for you. Also because last year student did inspection and user testing on the same website, so I need to split the two of them. You know, okay. What kind of diagram do you expect? Well, the diagram, the typical one that you find in Excel, pies, bars, or other, whatever typical, because you really, so the most important thing is to find ways to aggregate, for example, to aggregate all the values about content, navigation, interaction, or values about specific heuristic to pinpoint the different to pinpoint the most relevant heuristic. So you can so visualization typically is a pie or a bar or both. What are the aggregated data? That, yes, I repeat, I go back to the, okay, I go back to the slide. 1 second. Aggregated data is typically the mean, the average values for all heuristics, the average value of all heuristic on a given dimension. So the average value for content heuristic, for navigation heuristic. You can also add something like the standard deviation or similar. So these are the main aggregated data. Or also, if you have so if you have these are the essential one, and then looking at the data depending how detailed is your analysis. So for example, you can also provide the data that pinpoint the divergence of opinion between the different evaluators. But in general, the two things that I would like to see is what the value of the average value of the single heuristics with respect to their aggregation with respect to the typology of heuristic, according to the classification that is mentioned here: navigation, content, and layout. So also to avoid that you have to do too much work. I don't know if I answered them. We're going to have a lot of duplicated comment this way, I think, especially if we have the same screenshot in the individual group comment. If the screenshot is big, we reach the 10-page limit very quickly. That is a very good point. My suggestion is you do not have to report everything, as I mentioned before. You report the individual report by each evaluator is your raw data. And you have to work on this raw data and distill things for the purpose of your report. So I agree with you. It's maximum 10 pages. Well, you can write down many things in 10 pages. You have to make a selection. So that is the reason why I said when you report the individual table of each single evaluator, you do not need to report all comments, but only you can report no comment and incorporate all main comment in the general table in which you have the agreed score, or you report in the individual table of each evaluator just the main comments. Emphasize the quality of the final of the agreed scores, in which you have to, which again is the one that the only one that you should deliver to your client. The individual tables are useful for me to have the feeling that each of you have done something and you have not put the numbers crazily by a single person, which happened in the past. Okay, so very simple tables, distill the main result of each single evaluator with the scores and a few examples, or even removing example if you don't have space. Articulate, argue, discuss your scores in detail in your agreed score table. Okay. Are there other questions? If there are no other questions, I will stop the recording. And this is the first thing that I have to do. if I'm okay. And we okay. Okay, we'll stop the recording and close the session. Say you goodbye for the next week. Next Wednesday we'll have with high probability we will have the lecture on visual design for the web. Next Thursday we'll have a continuation about usability. Okay. Thank you for joining the course. Have a nice day. Ciao.